Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and I am pleased to bring you another .97 battle. This time it's going to be a 2v2 between some veteran players, including some developers, and it's going to be on the Ruins of Dole Guldur map, which is a new map you can expect to see in patch .97. And so without any further ado, let's take a look at some of our army comps here, and then we can jump into the replay. Hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're going to look at today is the host of Dole Amroth, being commanded by Engsvitz. He has brought some Parathil Randirum, a new class of unit for Dole Amroth in .97. Parathil are very strong and very versatile. This particular unit happens to be a horse archer, but unlike most horse archers, it does not have a penalty against other cavalry, which by no means makes it a replacement for melee cavalry or even for knights, but it does make them fare a little bit better in general against other mounted opponents. But speaking of melee cavalry, we have the Parathil Horse Guard. And these guys absolutely do have a bonus against other cavalrymen. They are very tanky, they've got a good shield value, and they've got high melee defense and damage as well. The big drawback is that they are expensive, and there's only 52 of them. Most cavalry units tend to clock in at about 60. So they're going to have a little bit less men there, which is in keeping with Dole Amroth's, I suppose, faction theme in general, as their units tend to be a little bit smaller, but a little bit more powerful. And we've got some Swan Knights over here. Classic unit using a classic model. Unlike the Swan Knights that perhaps you are used to from a vanilla Third Age, these guys are two-handed melee cavalry. Those two-handed animations are extremely powerful, very, very quick, which makes them able to punch a little bit higher above their pay grade than maybe you would expect just by reviewing their stats. More Randirum and more Horse Guard. Naturally, Dole Amroth has gone heavy on their cavalry, but it looks like they've gone for more of a numbers approach. So I'm not seeing any Swan Knights here. I'm not seeing any of the Arathirum, which is a Parathil Knight. Let's move on now to his infantry corps. We've got some Edelon Men-at-Arms here, a good deal of Edelon Men-at-Arms. Men-at-Arms units in general have been improved for .97, so they are a little bit better than they used to be. That being said, the Dole Amroth units were a cut above the rest, and that is still very much the case. When upgraded, they are a solid line infantry unit, and they can actually get a fair amount of damage done in melee against units that you maybe wouldn't expect them to be able to go toe-to-toe with. Pardon me. Over here, got some Marines of Belfalos. They are an axe-wielding javelin unit, mostly brought for their javelins, but they're also not terrible in close quarters after the fact. Their attack damage is quite high, but their defense values are a little bit on the lower end. Got some Tarnastian shield bearers here. Hopefully going to be getting a new model here to better reflect the rest of the Dole Amroth units. I think what we might do is port the Seaward Footman model over onto the Tarnastian shield bearers. I think that would be kind of cool. Moving on over here, Wanderers of Nimrodel. These are the Ranger unit, the only Ranger unit that Dole Amroth has available to them, as they have lost the Blackroot Vale Archers. Over here we got some Dornell Pikemen. In behind them, ooh, some nasty, well, I'm tempted to call them the Haven Guard, but for now they are called the Guards of Kobos Haven. Elite, they inspire units around them to greater feats of valor and bravery. Very, very useful for tying together an fairly infantry-heavy force here. Dornell Archers as well. I think only just one company of the Dornell Archers. Obviously, Engsvitz has gone for something of a close combat approach. He's going to be using his cavalry offensively along with his infantry. At least I hope he does, because otherwise, this build is very much wasted on anything else. I got some Parathil Champions over here. Very, very strong. A little bit smaller than your average human swordmaster unit, but still higher in numbers than the elves. These guys are heavily armored, have really good melee defense, and pretty damn strong attack as well. The Parathil are nothing to sneeze at, and they've got a little bit of an Inspire effect to give 2 morale in at 25 meters. Over here, more of the Men-at-Arms, and that is going to round it off for Engsvitz's force. Let's pop on over here and take a look at the army of Drizzy 4K, one of our developers. He's going to be playing as Rune, and I know Rune is one of those contentious factions that people are like, Rune never win. That's not true. Rune wins all the time. They're a really strong faction. And hopefully we get to see a little bit of that in today's battle. Got some Loke Flag Rim here brought by Drizzy. Loke Flag Rim were actually included in the Men-at-Arms. I want to call it, it's not really an overhaul. They just got some important stats in some key areas, but we got a little bit of extra melee defense and things like that to help them survive in melee for a little bit longer. As did the Loke Scion Rim. Pretty strong. Also, one of the few Inspire units that Rune has available to them, so important for keeping some of your lower tier units in the fray today. Low Camp Rim here as well. They are Halpers. I think they got a little bit of extra damage. Probably, well, 1 extra point of damage. Rune's been the subject of, like, minor tweaking, and that's just because Rune, I think, was on the cusp of being a really, really strong faction. So, you know, want to take that really slow. And the Lothlorien Rim. I'm actually really excited to show you guys the Lothlorien Rim today because they have a custom projectile. It doesn't do anything particularly cool, but as many of the runic units are themed after the dragons that Rune worships, and that's just been the thing since 3rd Age. I don't really know what lore basis they have for that, but in any case, they have... pardon me, allergy season. They have a fiery arrow. It doesn't do anything to morale, but it does look cool, and it is consistent with Rune's overall theme, so I think that's a neat little addition. I got some more Narim there hiding in the tree line. Also have some Dragon's Wrath Warlords. These guys are as tanky as they appear. Heavily, heavily armored, very strong lancers. They're a little bit on the slow side to balance out their survivability, but still a very powerful 2 HP unit nonetheless. Over here, we have the Eastron Guard with their new armor upgrade, which will become the 1.97, bringing them in line with the rest of the runic army. Really strong two-handed spears, like a really, really powerful counter to cavalry. A lot of people, I feel, underestimate this unit, and I think that we're going to see that a lot in 0.97 as people will look at them and they'll be like, oh, that's just a clan guard with an upgrade. That's no problem. I can run them right over with my cavalry. No, think again. They will shred your cavalry to tiny, tiny little bits, and they will leave nothing behind but your tiers, so do not underestimate them. More Loxion Rim, more Gamp Rim, more of the Flag Rim. Got some Camels Chosen, a little bit improved, and they also have a custom Inspire effect, so that's going to be useful since Rune does not have a lot of those generally. More Gamp Rim, and more Gamp Rim. Yeah, a lot of Golden Boys here today. Got, now we get into the really, really strong units here. The 2 elites that Dreezy has brought. This is the Camel's Dragon Knights, being led by Camel the Easterling himself. Very powerful unit. That's not where the General's going to be today. I feel like the General's probably in the Camel's unit. Nope, maybe not. Maybe he's hanging out with the Dragon's Wrath crossbows. No, well, he's somewhere around here, I'm sure. But the Dragon's Wrath crossbows are exceedingly powerful. They are a lot like Blacklocks in a lot of ways. We are considering changing their projectile a little bit to differentiate them a little bit, so it's not just a copy and paste of another unit in another faction's roster, but we'll see. And yeah, they can deploy stakes, so that's kind of useful. That's going to do it for Team Blue, shall we say. Let's go ahead and see what Team Red is bringing to the battle today. Across the field from the blue team, we have 2 forces, the first of which is being commanded by Eclipse 2500. He's going to be playing as the Realm of Lothlorien, who has undergone a lot of changes in patch 0.97, especially very recently with the addition of some new projectiles unique to the faction. And one of those projectiles is Silverthorn Arrows, which works exactly the way you'd expect if you have played BFME before, or BFME 2, I believe is where they come from. So they've got the same trail effect. They've got high mass, really high velocity, so they can send units flying. They actually have some really interesting applications in terms of pinning units in place. They do damage because they are also like fairly high damage arrows, but they're a little bit lower in the ammunition. But you can use them to pin infantry in place and just generally make a complete nuisance of yourself, especially when you're fighting and targeting units that depend on their formation. So shield walling units, you could potentially use these guys to shut them down if they're trying to do a shield wall push in your lines, and you have the opportunity to engage them with your arrows before they manage to impact your front lines. You also can use them against pike units to break up their formation. So started to add a little bit more of interesting gameplay-based counters instead of just stat-based counters to certain very common tactics in the game, pikes being one of them. So that's pretty exciting. And in addition to, they also no longer have an anti-cavalry malice. So they are as good as you would expect them to be. They just don't have the extra oomph that knights tend to get. So, and they're a little bit less armor and they don't have a shield value. So it's a good compromise. Really, really strong powerhouse unit, one that I think Lothlorien is going to bring in a ton of cases. And over here we got some Lorinond archers. As you can see, we've been changing, been swapping the names around just a little bit. High tier archers, high tier archers in 0.97 are a little bit different than they are in 0.96. They have access to fire arrows and stakes, whereas mainline archers I think only have access to stakes. So the 5 damage archers will only have stakes. Anything 6 and above will have fire arrows. At the very least, fire arrows and stakes, I believe. But they're also more accurate and have a greater range than some of the lower tier archers. The lower tier archers now firmly within the territory of being ranged fodder, whereas elite companies like the Lothlorien archers are going to be great for dealing damage, as it should be. New unit being added to Lothlorien here to replace their heavy swordsman. This one is a little bit more accessible, and they also have an armor upgrade available to them as well, and a unique Lothlorien look to them with those. This is like a rhomboid shield, like rhombus-shaped shield. Very high on melee defense and melee attack. Not so great on armor. They cost about 625, I think they're about 700 when fully upgraded, but still cheaper than the old Galathrim blades, and very, very effective. And they have more men in the unit too, so that's extra helpful. Over here, we have the Inner Council. People, I'm sure, are used to the Inner Council making an appearance in Reforged games, but they have a new model. This one was ported over by DSE. I believe it was created by Hummingbird, and it looks great. I love it. I'm glad that we've included this, and consequently, the Inner Council have got a little bit extra armor, so they've jumped from 3 to 5 to better reflect this new model. Back here, we have the Watchers of the Golden Wood, who, like their mounted counterparts, are also armed with silver thorn arrows. But more than that, Watchers of the Golden Wood are a force to be reckoned with in close quarters, not something you want to engage lightly. Another unit of the Inner Council over here. His forces are really spread out all over the place, so I'm not too sure where everything is, but we'll start to see more and more of it as the battle progresses. Let's move on now to his ally. This is one of the developers of the mod Sin of the Darkcloud. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. And he's going to be playing as Umbar, one of his favorite factions. And take a little look here at the Belgiar Footmen. They've been given a new helmet, which kind of makes them look like Unsullied. I really like it. He's brought two units of the Belgiar Footmen. Got some Belgiar archers over here as well. All the Belgiar units share this same helmet, but there are some new additions, and we're saying farewell to some old friends as well. The Belgiar halberds have been removed in favor of Belgiar pikes. Consequently, the Corsair units have actually been removed from Umbar, with the exception of the Corsair infantry, and they've been moved on to the rebel factions. So they're going to be making an appearance in the campaign, not so much in multiplayer, unless you're playing as the rebels, which are of course available to you on certain eras. Belgiar pikes capped at 2. Similar defensive stats to the old halberds, but of course they have the range of pikes and they're not AP any longer. And behind them we have the Alcarondas Legion, fairly heavily armored, but really they rely more on their melee defense. And they've got a little bit of a shield value as well, only about 6, I think, so they can be quite vulnerable to missiles. Something to keep in mind when engaging the Alcarondas Legion is that you can be effective against them at range, but they are also locked morale. They will fight to the death no matter the circumstances. And behind them, got some Belgiar archers, more Belgiar archers, and yet more Belgiar archers, so a whole bunch of skirmishers here. Got some more Belgiar footmen from Sin. Narnar Sentinels still in the game, but oof, a little bit lag there. You can see the Harbingers of Castamere have been given two-handed swords. They are no longer dual-wielding scimitar units, so they function a little bit more along the lines of Temple Executioners, although I think they're a little bit heavier on their melee defense and a little bit lighter on the armor, and of course they don't have access to an armor upgrade. Finally over here, we have the Warlords of Umbar, one of the 2 knight units for Umbar. Umbar has undergone a lot of changes in terms of their cavalry. In 0.97, they've lost all of the mercenary units, so they don't have access to the mercenary melee cavalry any longer, and I don't think that they have the crossbows if they ever really did. Might have been a while since they've had those. But now they rely on small but elite units of cavalry to fill the role and plug the hole left by the departure of those units. And another unit that's going to help out with that is the Alcarondas Faithful, available both to Umbar and to the new Numenor faction. They are a smaller but more elite unit of knights. So Umbar can field 50 knights in total for a fairly high price. I believe in total it's about 3,000 gold, so it's a lot of your 13k recommended budget. But yeah, they do the job nicely. They can be overwhelmed, and obviously these kinds of units are going to be very vulnerable to attrition. So if you can, stick a company of mounted merc crossbows on these guys, they do fall apart pretty fast. So it's a bit of a risk to bring both. But that's going to do. I think that's going to do for the army composition. So without any further ado, let's jump into this replay. And this battle is going to begin with a tactical retreat on the part of Lothlorien, although it looks like they've got a few units here that we missed during the army composition phase. A couple hidden units of March Wardens of the Wood, armed with their poison arrows, hiding in the tree line. A little bit farther over here, you can see the Riders of the Golden Wood have been brought forward, possibly to contest movement from Dole Amroth, but Dole Amroth is actually out here with most of their cavalry force and their scouts, as not their scouts, their archers as well, and they are in the process of scouting in force, trying to root out any potential Lothlorien ambushes, because on Dol Guldur, this is a great map for those kinds of things. Dol Guldur is a map that rewards positioning and forethought above all. There's a lot of mud terrain on the flat ground, which makes it very, very difficult to traverse. So you're going to be moving slowly through these areas, whereas up here on the hills, units are able to move around much more freely. So it's a great place to contest control of the hills, try and use them to your advantage. I think we're going to see a lot of positional play in this battle today. So Dole Amroth moving forward with the entirety of their Parathil contingent, along with their Swan Knights. That's going to be a big problem for Lothlorien. Lothlorien does not have a lot of spear units, and they've really only got one unit of cavalry that's worth anything. So this is going to be a tough fight for them. It'll be interesting to see how they decide to approach this Dole Amroth advance. I think we also did miss a few Lothlorien units that were kind of mixed in and hidden somewhere. Let me see if I can track them down. So yeah, we've got a couple companies here of the Lorinand warriors who are armor-piercing two-handed axes. And then I believe there's also some axemen of the Golden Wood, which are sword and board axe units. They do not have the AP, however. So Lothlorien does have some heavier reserves to fall back on. It's not just archers and light troops. Let's pop on over here. Parathil Randirum seem to be circling around, looking for an opportunity, something to hunt. I think maybe they've spotted the March Wardens of the Wood hiding in the tree line over here. So they're going to come under fire, and that's going to oblige Lothlorien to try and do something about that. I'm not too sure where they've hidden their Riders of the Golden Woods, but they're going to need to be brought forward unless they want this entire archer line to be quickly swept away. And it looks like they're already here. Riders of the Golden Wood contesting the ground with the Parathil Horse Archers, but they are coming under fire from everywhere in the hills. Those cavalry units are going to be able to focus down the Riders of the Golden Wood, and while they are 2 HP and heavily armored, they are severely outnumbered and lacking in a shield. This is going to be a tough fight for them. You can see those shafts of blue fire stinging into the Dole Amroth lines. Parathil Randirum returning fire, poison arrows flying overhead. This is going to be a tough fight. But this is kind of the way that if I was in Lothlorien's position, I would use my cavalry as well. Have them focus on this obvious and high-tier target, and then try and use my archers to whittle down their numbers and to make the sacrifice of this very expensive golden goose a little bit more worth it. Now Lothlorien is going to be obliged to fall back in force. March Wardens of the Wood being brought in behind the rest of the host of Lothlorien, and they're probably going to take a position up here on the hills where they can be most effective. And now you can see the Dole Amroth cavalry, perhaps getting a little bit too greedy. Yeah, the Swan Knights wanted a piece of those Riders of the Golden Wood, and it's a very tempting target, as I mentioned earlier. But in exchange, they are going to get shot down by the already set up companies of the Watchers of the Golden Wood and the Lorinand Archers, and of course the Riders of the Golden Wood themselves are going to turn around and harass the Swan Knights for all it's worth. I think they lost about a third of the unit there. And the Parathil Randirum here got a little bit too close to the rest of the Lothlorien army, chasing those Riders of the Golden Wood, and they are going to be obliged to fall back in turn as well. That was a tough exchange. The Riders of the Golden Wood took some very heavy casualties here, and Dole Amroth is still pressing them with a second company of the Parathil Randirum, which I think is just out of range of their support. So the Riders of the Golden Wood are going to need to fall back lest they be completely destroyed, although they are well on their way to that critical points of no return where they can no longer be useful and no longer valuable as bait. Many of the Riders of the Golden Wood laying dead on the fields behind them. That being said, Dole Amroth didn't get off scot-free. I think about a third of their companies of the Parathil Randirum and a third of their company of Swan Knights paid the ultimate price for the damage done to that Lothlorien cavalry unit. But that being said, this does work out in Dole Amroth's favor, in my opinion, because now they have free reign here with all of their cavalry, and of course they've got some archers here in support. So they're not going to make the same mistake of moving forward unsupported with their cavalry. They're going to have their own range support now, and against the lightly armored warriors of Lothlorien, that can be quite effective. The numbers that Engsvitz here is going to be able to bring to bear is going to have an effect. And it's worth noting as well that he has 2 companies of the Dornernal archers, and not one as I had originally thought. Now from this point on, I think it's going to be a little bit slow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a quick cut here, and I'll rejoin you guys in just a few minutes. Now this is an interesting point in this battle. You can see Lothlorien falling back here. No spear units to speak of, and a lot of squishier light infantry that are forming the basis of their defense on their right wing. And Dole Amroth is seeing that, and I think they're smelling some blood in the water here. So the Parathil and the Swan Knights are coming forward in force. We've got Horse Guard, we've got the Randirim, and of course we've got the famous Swan Knights. I'm going to move a little bit slowly through this muddy terrain, but they are going to pick up. Yeah, you can see the difference there as they get onto the hills. This is why I'm really excited for... Oh. Ooh, big lag. And this is why I'm really excited for Dole Guldur as a competitive map. I think it's got a lot of potential, and the map itself and the terrain lends itself to tactical and thoughtful play. Looks like the Dole Amroth cavalry is going for it here, but the Blades of the Wood are in loose formation, and the Lothlorien archers are going to unleash hell into the Dole Amroth cavalry as they move forward, and this is going to be a tough position for them. The Blades of the Wood are just being used as fodder, and I think Engsvitz realizes his mistake, but it's far too late, and now those units are going to have to turn their back to the deadly archers of Lothlorien, and they are going to suffer grievously in this retreat. You can see a second company of Horse Guard that move forward here to get a piece of the Blades of the Wood. Largely ineffective. These are melee cavalry, not lancers. Something heavier is going to be needed to punch their way through effectively. These units are... Ooh, with the lag. These units are most effective against other cavalrymen, not for frontal charges like that, and Engsvitz certainly paid a heavy price to learn that lesson today. Look at that. That's a lot of dead horsemen, and not a lot of dead Blades of the Wood in exchange. Over here we have something with a little bit more oomph behind it. The Dragon's Wrath Warlords would certainly take a bite out of those Blades of the Wood, but at what cost? I think having seen the fate of his allies' cavalry, Dreezy is going to wisely pull back and try and avoid getting bogged down in another of these tar pit traps set for him by Eclipse 2500. What we have in the back here, Lothlorien archers hard at work. Looks like Eclipse is bringing forward some of his inner council reserves. We might see an aggressive push here from Lothlorien. It's entirely possible. Nothing is outside the realm of possibility in games like this. Dornernal archers doing their best to plunk away at the Lothlorien warriors from the front. Although the Blades of the Wood, lightly armored though they may be, they are equipped with a stout shield, so they'll be able to stand up to this fairly well. So far, all is quiet on the western front here, with Umbar holding their ground in the face of a massed runic advance. I think I can hear some bows going off, so maybe some of the Belgiar units out in front exchanging fire, and here are the promised fire arrows. The Alcaron Legion, they're going to take that on the chin along with the Belgiar pikes. Because of their low shield value, it is actually going to be fairly effective against them. Long term, this is going to be enough to melt this formation away, and I think Sin of the Dark Cloud definitely realizes that. So some repositioning is going to need to happen here, but you have to choose your time wisely. So at the end of a volley like this is when you're going to want to try and run out of range, because if you turn your back mid-volley, you're going to suffer a very similar fate to the Dole Amroth cavalry that we saw just moments ago, where you are getting shot in the back, and it is devastating. It is far more damaging than it would be if you were facing those arrows head on. Sin the Dark Cloud, however, so far is content to sit here and take it. The Alcaron Legion, I think, have about 8 armor and 6 shields, so they can stand up to that reasonably well. Ugh, lag. But those high tier archers, they've got a lot of ammunition. Oh, and this is where it gets disastrous, turning their back in the middle of an arrow volley. You're going to see a lot of these units fall in the face of that massed arrow fire, and this is one of the big drawbacks to this stacked infantry line. It can be very, very powerful in an infantry fight, but when it comes to facing down missile units, they are just that much more effective against you. Meanwhile, over here, Lothlorien is holding their ground, perhaps a little bit unsure of what to do here. They certainly have the archer capacity to fight this kind of fight with Dole Amroth, but that's going to use up a lot of their ammunition. Dornal archers here, not incredibly dangerous, but just enough to warrant a response. But necessarily that's going to drain Lothlorien of some pretty important resources, and they're going to rely heavily on their archer-heavy comp, on their archers in their skirmish-heavy comp, as we've seen already. Dole Amroth now gearing up for a general advance. The cavalry licking their wounds, ready for round 2, however, deployed on Dole Amroth's far left wing. Looks like maybe the Dole Amroth forces are going to go for an encirclement here and try and wrap around the Umbar and Lothlorien alliance, who have employed a little bit of tactical geometry here, taking a position on this river crossing and in the hills here as well. Lothlorien heavy infantry center moving up. Ooh, it looks like we have an aggressive move here from Lothlorien as the host of the Golden Wood surges forward from that tree line under heavy arrow fire. I wonder what the plan is here. Maybe to try and break out of the encirclement, go for the weakened center, and try and bisect these two armies. And maybe Umbar is going to move up simultaneously and support their ally Lothlorien. At least I hope so. Yeah, some commitment here from Umbar. Got some Belgier footmen, more footmen, and Umbar is repositioning their archers to be of better use to support this push. That being said, the real meat and potatoes of Umbar's army is still quite a distance behind. Naturally, there's still the threat of the Dole Amroth cavalry and all these other Dole Amroth infantry units here. So this is a risky move on the part of Lothlorien. Looks like the Dragon's Wrath Warlords just got a little cheeky charge here into the Blades of the Wood. You can see how much more effective the Lancer cavalry is at running down infantry. Riders of the Golden Wood being brought to bear in the center. They're going to be used to tie down some Dornal archers. That's going to be good news for the advancing Lothlorien troops, which means they're going to be under just that much less range pressure. Oh, the Lornan warriors taking it on the chin from the Dragon's Wrath Warlords. That's painful. And the Warlords aren't going to want to stay in there for too long. Yeah, you can see some of them starting to fall away. Armor-piercing counter-charge definitely knocked off some of the HP from the Dragon's Wrath Warlords. Now the Lothlorien infantry is going to be free to advance into the runic. I guess this would be their left wing, and try and punch a hole between the two armies here. This is a risky maneuver. It may lend itself to helping the Umbar Lothlorien alliance to defeat their enemies in detail if they're able to focus both with their Umbar ally and with their own heavy infantry forces. With their Umbar ally and their own heavy infantry forces on the runic player's wing, break them and crush them between their two armies. But it seems like Lothlorien is fighting this fight alone. While there are some Umbar units that are nearby, most of the support seems to be lagging quite far behind. Umbar infantry being the lag here is just crazy. Being redeployed. Bellier footmen with some Numenorian Lancers, who I didn't realize that Sin had until this point. Fighting with the Perithil Horse Guard. Perithil Horse Guard taking heavy casualties and being forced into the retreat. Another unit of the Perithil Horse Guard was actually broken entirely. So Dole Amroth cavalry is struggling mightily on this side of the battlefield. And with the casualties they've already taken, I think that they are going to be a non-factor moving in to the later stages of this battle. What do we have over here? Some hard-hitting, mean sons of bitches from Dole Amroth coming over the hill. Perithil champions. I think the guards of Comas Haven are in close attendance as well. And Dole Amroth is really trying to tighten the noose here. Lothlorien Blades of the Wood fighting against the massed ranks of the Adela men-at-arms. There's just not enough of them, though their quality be greater than that of their Dole Amroth counterparts. There's just not enough support here to help these Blades of the Wood win the day. Sin is nearby, but it's still going to be a tough fight. And what's going on up here in the woods? An apocalyptic struggle as Lothlorien is fighting hard against Rune. Rune doesn't seem to be holding up as well as I'm sure Dreezy would like them to. The massed ranks of these elven warriors here seems to be cutting their way through the thick, heavy armor of the Loke Rim, or the Loke regiments that are arrayed here to try and weather this storm. Looks like Rim reserves being mobilized. That might be all the extra oomph that they need to hold on here, along with the Loknar Rim pouring in their fire arrows. More reinforcements here surging forward from Rune as they go for an encirclement. Lothlorien archers here looking like they're out of ammunition, or at the very least they've been engaged in close quarters by the Dornodal pikemen. Pikemen are going to have a great time fighting these units because they do not have anything to match their range, and meanwhile, from the rear, the Flag Rim going to get in here against the Lothlorien archers. And the Lothlorien situation here is extremely precarious. Inner Council have been brought to bear. Let's see who they're going after. I need to know. It looks like they're going for the Camel's Chosen. Not a bad choice. They're also going to thin out some of the Gamp Rim there as well in the doing. March Wardens of the Wood firing into the front of the Dragon regiments. It's not going to be very effective at all. Dragon's Wrath. Oh my goodness. And this is where it might start to fall apart for poor Lothlorien. Dragon's Wrath crossbows have been brought to bear against the rear and the flank of the Lorinond warriors and the Lorinond axemen. Ooh, that lag is nasty. Oh, that's going to be devastating. And this is where Lothlorien's offensive, I think, is going to start to stall out. Instead of the Dark Cloud is going to be hard pressed, I think, to hold the line. Although that being said, nice hammer and anvil charge here from the Warlords of Umbar. Going to finish off most of the Swan Knights, a large number of Adelon men-at-arms. And the Lorien Blades have held just long enough for Sin of the Dark Cloud's much-needed reinforcements to arrive. Over here, Belgiar Footmen being used to push back the Parathil Horse Guard for a second time. Alcaron is faithful in there as well, and Dole Amroth Cavalry is all but extinct at this point. They're very much an endangered species. All I can see left here is just this one unit of Randirum. And now the Umbarim are going to be free to pursue this flank assault here, which has so far been very effective and is well poised, I think, to begin to roll up the Dole Amroth lines. And because of Dreezy being over here and not really engaging with a ton of his infantry, I can understand the impetus behind that. If he does move in, Sin of the Dark Cloud will be able to counter with the push from the Alcaronis Legion and the Pikes over there. But it's a tough call, and I think that more pressure is needed over here to wipe out Lorien quickly and then to relieve his Dole Amroth ally. And once that's done and they control the center of this fight here, then they can move on Sin of the Dark Cloud with all of his strength, and the Alcaronis Legion and the Pikes will be powerless to stop them. But the passivity, I think, is going to be to their detriment. I mentioned earlier that they are running the risk of being defeated in detail if they are not able to push home their advantage in numbers at this point, because Lothlorien has been heavily mauled at this point. There's a 10% difference here. Dole Amroth doing their best to move in and try and finish off what remains. I'm starting to see some breaking here from the Lorien archers, but they're not done yet. Inner Council now out of ammunition. Still got the Watchers of the Goldenwood. And they are a formidable infantry unit indeed. And it's going to take a combination of the Guards of Kobas Haven plus the Parathil Champions to get up here and deal with that threat. Inner Council fighting hard, but against pikemen, they are sorely outmatched. Some of the Dark Clouds units now moving in. Alcarondas Legion, I think maybe 2 companies of them there, or at the very least 1 company of the Legion, along with some Belgiar Pikes, moving forward to support the Belgiar Footmen here. And I think that Rune might be in a little bit of trouble here. There's still some Elven Archers up there, lots of March Wardens of the Golden Wood. And Nelson is moving forward with some of his best, although no, he is going to move over this way. And I think the strategy here is, defeat Dole Amroth, who's kind of struggling a little bit against the remnants of Lothlorien. Defeat them along with his ally, and then turn around and focus all of their remaining attention and strength on the remains of Rune. Some Dragon's Wrath warlords moving over this direction. That could be a problem for Sin of the Dark Cloud's forces there. That flank is wide open. The Guards of the Kobas Haven and the Parathil Champions, what remains of them anyway, charging uphill. And And those fear-causing units, I think, are going to be enough to send the remnants of Lothlorien packing here. You can see some breaking. Lorien archers down to 20, 19. Inner Council, still 60 of them. The Watchers of the Golden Wood have been slightly weakened, I think, by the constant arrow fire from the warriors of Rune. Says victory is certain here, but I wouldn't believe it. The numbers are very much against the Lorien warriors. Now might be a good time for a tactical retreat. If Lothlorien can escape off this hill before it becomes their tomb, they might be able to move with Sin of the Darkcloud, reinforce, and help him in defeating Dole Amroth. Oh, the Inner Council holding up well. What do we got here? Is that... Yeah, Sin of the Darkcloud has some rangers, and they are well poised to do a lot of damage to Dole Amroth. The weight of Dole Amroth's charge and the momentum that it gave them is going to become a serious hindrance to them as they push forward into Sin of the Darkcloud's reinforcements. They're being pinned in place and are easy prey for those rangers. Looks like we have a breakthrough here. An apocalyptic struggle on the top of this hill between the best that Lothlorien and Dole Amroth have to offer, the Parathil champions and the guards of Kobos Haven, squaring off against the Watchers of the Golden Wood. This is a last stand here for the Elves of Lothlorien. Looks like the Dragon's Wrath crossbows are being used to fire into the rear of the Watchers of the Golden Wood, but those body-piercing arrows are going to slay friend as well as foe. And I think I saw some of the Parathil champions and the guards of Kobos Haven fall to those volleys. Hell of a fight, though. Hell of a fight. What we got going on down here? The Nar Rim have joined the fray against the Alcaronas Legion and the Pike combination, but it's not enough. Got some Narnar Sentinels over here as well, and the Casimir's Rangers, still with some ammunition, and I don't think I've seen them engaged yet, so he should still have some of his HP elites still left. More Belgier footmen forming up behind the line. Yeah, Sin is well poised to defeat Dole Amroth and the detachments of Easterlings on this side. And Dreezy, I think, has finally seen the writing on the wall, and now he's beginning to move forward with everything left of his forces to try and encircle Sin of the Darkcloud in turn. I don't know what's going to happen here today, but this is going to be a tough fight. Campbell's Dragon Knights using the opening created by the advance of the Alcaronas Legion and their Pike support to charge into the Belgier archers up here on the hill, who hitherto have been able to do their work unmolested. Now the Belgier archer is going to lose about 30 or so men to that charge. Campbell's Dragon Knights looking like they want to bug out of there. Maybe there's some cavalry on the way. Nope. There's some spearmen, though. Certainly enough to make that cavalry unit think twice. And then in the retreat, look at this. Cheeky charge here into the Alcaronas Legion, who are just separated enough from the Belgier Pikes for this to be an effective tactic of whittling down Sin of the Darkcloud's numbers. I think that might have been the Runic general. Can't really tell. Gonna go ahead and slow things down just a little bit. Over in the back here, it looks like the Dragon's Wrath Warlords, I think that was the Runic general, were caught out by the Alcaronas faithful and ultimately destroyed. Warlords of Umbar nearby. It looks like Sin of the Darkcloud lost a little bit of micro on these guys, and now Sin of the Darkcloud is free to move in with his reserves. Harbingers of Castamere and the Narnar Sentinels leading the way as it begins to encircle what remains of the Dole Amroth army. This is a damned fine maneuver. Lothlorien was very impetuous and charged right up here, and kind of got themselves surrounded and massacred on the top of that hill. However, Sin of the Darkcloud is using the momentum of his enemies against them. We saw the way he was doing it with the Rangers, and now he's moving in for a complete encirclement of a large number of Easterling and the remains of Dole Amroth's forces. This is a tough fight. Oh, that being said, the Easterlings are still in it. Oh, Bellier Pikes over here facing off against Nar Rim, and we got some Cyan Rim moving in there as well. Alcaronas Legion gonna come face to face with some of the Easterling reserves. What do we got over here? Campbell's Dragon Knights as well. This could be... Yeah, this is a pretty tough tough situation for Sin of the Dark Cloud. That's what I was trying to say, with great effort. Some of those Belgier footmen just got routed off by a charge from the Camel's Dragon Knights, and with more and more of these Easterling reinforcements moving in, he does run the risk of his flank collapsing under the weight. And look at this, Camel's Dragon Knights here, plus the Eastron Guard in the area. I don't know why they are retreating from this fight. If they were to all get in there at the same time, the Alcaron Faithful would be essentially powerless. There's no need to flee in the face of these cavalry reinforcements. This is an opportunity, not a cause for panic. And in the meantime, the Alcaron Legion are being tied down and actually defeated here by the combination of Nar Rim and Scion Rim. Dole Amroth has now moved forward with some of their Rangers, and there's some Marines of Belfalas nearby. Ooh, but the Lancers have gotten into them, finding the soft underbelly of the Dole Amroth army, and that's why the Camel's Dragon Knights are being pulled out of there. Those Numenorian Lancers are going to be in for a nasty shock. We got over here, Alcaron Faithful. I think we're trying to scoot through this gap here, but the Eastron Guard have been brought forward, and then there's some Dragon Wrath crossbows nearby as well. Yeah, on this side, Sin of the Dark Cloud is really struggling, and it's only a matter of time before he is defeated. On the other end, however, Dole Amroth and Rune are being squeezed by the Umbarim. Sin of the Dark Cloud tightens the noose around Rune's ally. Let's see. Did I see some arrows coming out? Oof. Don't know why that happens. What do we got here? Karen Amroth Rangers. So the Elves of Lothlorien still in the fight. Over this way, Dornal Archers, I think, are firing into the rear of those Rangers, so their presence is known. But God, how long have they been here? How much damage have they been able to do to the rear and to the flank of the Easterling army? This is significant. They are well poised to just shred through the unprotected flank of these runic infantry units while they are pinned in place by some of the best that Umbar has to offer. Countercharge here from Dole Amroth. They are going all in, throwing everything that they have to try and push back this assault, or at the very least slow it down long enough so that the rest of the army can be brought to bear against them. Over here, resistance is a little bit thicker. Got the guards of Kobos Haven as well as the Parathil champions mixed in with a lot of quality Easterling infantry. But the wavering is real here, and you can see those ranger shots coming in here and really making these units think about maybe fleeing for their life. Certainly a great way to break the resolve of your enemy. Let's go ahead, kick it up to full speed now. Marines of Belfalas now safe. Numenorian Lancers licking their wounds and off in the distance, prowling like wolves, looking for another opportunity to jump on the Dole Amroth unprotected rear. Wanderers of Nimrodel. Ooh, I think they're going to give the Castamir's Rangers what for here. You can see some of the Umbar units routing off or being slowly defeated. And now the Camel's Dragon Knights. I think they're free to just get behind the lines and do whatever they please. Nope, the Alcaron Faithful are here. Kept in reserve for just such an occasion. Now I think would be a good time to have moved forward with the Eastron Guard. Yeah, this would have been a great way to screen the Camel's Dragon Knights while they ran unimpeded hammer and anvil charges into the back of the Alcaron Legion. But unfortunately, the timing was not there this time around, and it looks like the Dragon Knights are going to suffer some pretty heavy casualties because of it. Eastron Guard, however, looking to avenge their fallen commanders. Ooh, and the Faithful now. It's going to be their turn to run away. And they are going to get caught out here by the Eastron Guard. Well, the Eastron Guard weren't really able to connect with them. None of their attack animations went off there, which is why the Alcaron Legions were able to slip away so easily and unscathed. Belgier Archers here, charging down from the hill, trying to tie down the Easterling forces as much as possible, but looks like Sin of the Dark Cloud's troops here are essentially doomed. And now, if they're quick about it, Dole Amroth and Rune will be able to shift their momentum back to this wing and focus on the Naru units and the other elite Numenorians who have taken this hill from them. And encirclement, I think, is the only way that they're going to win that fight. Ooh, what do we got here? Numenorian Lancers getting another nice charge into the Marines of Belfalas. But they are shaken and wavering. We could see the end of them here. think they took a javelin volley shortly before they managed to catch the Marines out in the open. Just a few more kills here. Gamprim come from behind, trying to make sure that these Numenorian Lancers stay gone. So then Dark Cloud's going to try and pull them out there, and it looks like he's going to be able to escape. But he is going to lose a couple more of his Lancers as a result. Alcaron has Faithful coming in from the other end. And Dole Amroth left these units undefended and untended, as did Rune. Very unfortunate. Yeah, there's a lot of spearmen here that could have been used to zone out those Alcaron as Faithful instead of chasing down some of the Belgier units. And now they're going to be forced to circle the wagons a little bit here. Try and bring everything important to them into the center. Nice rear charge here into the Harbingers of Castamere. That's going to take a big bite out of them. And Umbar was in the process of pushing down the hill here. But it seems like Umbar's maybe running out of steam. Sentinels are very much in danger of being defeated. They are going to be completely enveloped by some armor-piercing infantry. Got the flag rim. Looks like they're going in for a rear charge. Maybe. While the Gamprim hold them in place. Yeah, here we go. But it seems like Lothlorien has something to say about that. The Caern Amroth archers, or the Caern Amroth rangers, out of ammunition, charging down the hill. This could be significant. This is very much the linchpin of Sin of the Dark Cloud's remaining forces, especially with the rear charge they took earlier. So if the Narnar Sentinels were surrounded, they would have fallen apart very quickly. Well, now Sin of the Dark Cloud making a tactical retreat and fall a little bit farther back up the slopes of that hill. Campbell's chosen guards of Kobas Haven, cleaning up what remains of Umbar's elite forces on the flat ground here. And over here I got some Nar Rim and the Wanderers of Nimrodel, dealing with some Belgier archers who came back from routing. Sin of the Dark Cloud using these units as a distraction and an irritant, and to buy himself a little bit of time. Watchers of Nimrodel no longer able to fire, and that's a pretty big deal. Looks like the Eastern Guard here somehow got routed. No idea how that happened. Over on this side, oh, I don't know. It's hard to, I don't want to call it too early, but with all of these knight units still alive, got some Warlords of Umbar and the Alcaron as Faithful, and the Campbell's Dragon Knights routing at 11. Yeah, I don't know. Rune no longer has their general either, so they can't stand up to the morale shocks that these kinds of units can deliver. It's going to be tough. That being said, the Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen do inspire. And they are quite formidable warriors in melee. Not quite as good as the Harbingers of Castamere, but nonetheless formidable. Rune's doing their best here. Camel's chosen and the crossbows fighting back-to-back. Narnar Sentinels no longer in any danger of being encircled, as much of Rune's army has been defeated and routed away. I don't think there's too much left from Dole Amroth either. Just look at the destruction on the top of this hill. This was an absolute bloodbath. This saw the end of, like, at least 2 full armies. The rest of the fighting took place down here in the lowlands. And there goes the last of the guards of Kobas Haven. There's just a couple of them left in there, along with the Campbell's chosen. Oh, that damn lag. Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen going for one final glorious charge before they are encircled. Let's go ahead, turn up the speed a little bit here. The Knights move in, the Harbingers move in, and this last stand is underway. Well, some of the Knights have been claimed by the desperation of these Dragon's Wrath crossbows. But it's too late. Looks like the Eastern Guard came back from routing, only to be destroyed by the Caern Amroth Rangers and the Alcaron as Faithful, getting a nice rear charge there. And at the end of the day, it's going to be 94 to 94. This was a hell of a game and a great example of defeat in detail. I understand Dreezy's hesitation. As I mentioned earlier, Sin the Dark Cloud still had reserves that he had not committed, so encirclement was not necessarily a simple affair, but I do think that Rune delayed a little bit too much. Lothlorien was able to pull off a pretty good last stand up there on the hill. Sin the Dark Cloud was able to use the time the Lothlorien bought them to get his reserves in there, while Rune stood by and watched. Again, it's a tough fight. And it's a tough call in the moment, so I don't want to criticize too much in retrospect. But I think that was probably one of the things that contributed to their defeat here, is that Dole Amroth was able to be encircled and defeated. Rune did their best to try and get some units over there, but there was still a large body of their infantry that remained uncommitted for a large portion of this battle. So it was a tough one. Very, very bloody, very even game between players who know what they're doing. Yeah.